Welcome, everyone. My name is Chris Pereira. I'm Executive Director and Head of the New York office for EqualOcean. EqualOcean is an investment research firm providing information services focused on technology and automotive and consumer internet sectors. We have focused on these sectors to help with understanding regulation in North America and in China. We also help with investment, doing due diligence for investment targets and projects. And of course, we're also interested in cool new technology. So that's why we're here today to talk about the Metaverse. There's a lot of hype around the Metaverse, of course, in 2022. We're still connecting over a non-Metaverse technology right now. But I can imagine in a few years, depending on what our guests share with us today, but maybe it's not just a few years, it could be soon, how we communicate, how we connect with people across the internet in the future is changing, and looking forward to hearing some of the projections and trends and things to look for from an investment perspective, and also just from a technology and future-focused view of the world. So I'd like to welcome you all here. Thank you for being with us, and EqualOcean is very proud to host this event. And with that being said, I'll hand it over to Fuller, our moderator for this discussion, to introduce our panelists. Over to you, Fuller.
Thanks, Chris. Hi, everyone. Good evening and good morning, good afternoon, depending on wherever you are in this world. So my name is Fuller, and I'm a lead analyst from EqualOcean New York team. And more importantly, I'm your moderator for today's panel. And so we will also discuss with some future investment opportunities that in the Metaverse area today. So today I got many inspiring guests for this panel, and I'm going to let them to introduce themselves and their business. So for first, we have Mr. Aaron Tsai today, and he is a founder of Mass Capital and an investment banker known as the king of shells in 1990s. Now he's also a DeFi investor. And hi, Aaron, would you mind to introduce himself a little bit more?
Sure, Fuller. Hi, my name is Aaron Tsai. I'm the founder and chief capitalist of Mass Capital, a U.S. investment bank, Mass5 public blockchain, and our latest DeFi venture investment, Hashbrown Swap, which is an open cross-chain DeFi platform with a building DEX designed for everyone to use. We want to make DeFi access as easy as eating a hash brown, and hopefully we can build it as a financial infrastructure for the Metaverse. Thank you, Fuller.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. And we have Dr. Henry Wang. He is a founder of Smart Mesh and one of the earliest people who look into the concept of the Web3. And also, hi, Henry. Would you mind to introducing a little bit? Yeah, hi.
Hello, everyone. My name is Henry Wang, and I'm the founder of Smart Mesh. And yes, I actually coined the word Web3 and back in 2003. It's quite early, and at that time, the Web2 was just proposed. And I'm trying to do a one world, one web back in like 2003. Okay, so later I probably will describe the whole history of the Web3. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Okay, thank you, Henry. And we have Mr. Jimmy Chen, and he's a co-founder of Oli Sports Metaverse, and also he's a pioneers of NFT in Canada. Hi, Jimmy. Glad to have you. And would you mind to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for organizing everything, Fuller. So yes, my name is Jimmy Chen. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Oli Sport Metaverse. And really, in a nutshell, we are an NFT horse racing race to earn esport metaverse. But really looking at that is like seeing the tip of the iceberg without recognizing the full extent of it and what's below the water. And it's really what's below the water that's interesting. So the deeper value that we provide is in twofold. The first is that we're an in-game crypto economy that is set to revolutionize and corrupt and replace a number of corrupt government regulatory, regulated economic policies, traditional banking, and to ultimately unify the financial sector so that everyone in all economic classes can participate in wealth creation within this digital economy. And on the second part, we're also the first metaverse to connect virtual land to real land so that the NFT value is backed by real world limited assets. So really by playing our game, our investors are able to benefit from the increase of value of global real estate ownership and at a fraction of the price of buying real land through fractional ownership. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jimmy. So, and then we have Mr. Kelvin Vincent. He's the Vice President of Utopia VR, which is also a pioneer of the Metaverse virtual meeting stand in Canada. Hi, Kelvin.
Hello, Fuller. Thank you. And I think my camera froze. Is it frozen for you? I apologize.
It's okay.
I'm just going to.
So would you mind introducing yourself a little bit more?
Yes, thank you, Fuller. I apologize. My camera froze for a second there. Yes, thank you very much. It's an honor to be among so many incredibly talented and forward-thinking people. What I do for our company is I build relationships with different entities around the world. We're having some tremendous success in that respect. We are a web-based platform, unlike some metaverse platforms that are connected to very large social media companies where you are required to wear a headset. With our platform, you do not. You can simply join in the metaverse, if you will, simply and easily through a web browser. And we'll have an opportunity, I'm sure, throughout the discussion that I'll be able to shed a little more light on that. So thank you for the invitation, and I look forward to tonight's discussion.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. We're so glad to have you. And then finally, we have Dr. Louis Rosenberg, the founder of Microscribe 3D, Swarm AI, and Unanimous AI. And he is also the speaker of TED Talks. So, hi, Louis. Would you mind introducing yourself a little bit more?
Sure. So I'm Louis Rosenberg. I'm currently the founder and CEO of Unanimous AI. And we're a AI company that amplifies the intelligence of distributed human groups that could be anywhere in the world. We connect them together and allow them to make significantly more accurate decisions and forecasts and predictions. Our customers include hedge funds, Fortune 500 companies. The United Nations is a customer. We're suddenly getting a lot of interest from distributed DAOs for making decisions in the metaverse. And so that's what I do now. I've actually been involved in the metaverse for over 30 years. I started working in virtual reality in actually 1991 at NASA. Did my PhD then at Stanford in virtual reality and augmented reality, and built the first augmented reality system for the U.S. Air Force in 1992. And then I founded a virtual reality company in 1993, Immersion Corporation, which we took public in 1999, and I survived the VR winter, which lasted 15 years. The company still exists. I am now focused on the artificial intelligence part of the world with Unanimous AI, but I've been deeply involved in virtual and augmented reality for 30 years.
Thank you, Louis. I watched your TED speech about AI and thinking as systems and on YouTube. It's very inspiring. Thank you, Louis. And also, we welcome all the panelists to our webinar and thank all of you for your introduce. And so today's topic is Metaverse. So Metaverse is a concept that we are seeing on various news and articles. But now we are living in a new world after the pandemic, and everything is remote and people are even more separated. But the Metaverse can bring the people closer together, and even when they cannot physically gather. So this also created a very great and potential investable space in this area. So I always believe that So everyone has a unique understanding of the metaverse. So I'd like to let each panelist, if you could, to share what's your understanding of it. And Luis, I would like to start with you. Could you please share some of your thoughts about metaverse?
Sure. So I like to think of the metaverse in the context of the transition from flat media to immersive media. And I say that because we basically currently live in a world where we are observers looking at content from the outside, and we're in a transition to being participants experiencing content from the inside. And so I look at the metaverse as immersive environments that you experience in the first person, and you experience them with large numbers of other people to create a metaverse. My personal view is that there will be virtual metaverse environments that are completely simulated, and augmented metaverse environments that are a combination of real and virtual worlds. And I like to think of them differently because I think they have very different timelines and very different players, and they evolve differently. But they both, I think, fall under this broad context of the metaverse.
That's awesome. Thank you. It's a very comprehensive explanation. So Kevin, so you are actually someone who are working in this space, and I'd like to get your take. So metaverse. So
I've had the opportunity to be involved in a number of conversations in a number of different venues talking about what is the metaverse. And I take a little bit of a contrarian type of approach to it. I think of the word the metaverse as more of an adjective rather than a noun. It's really describing a better internet. And I think that Lewis is quite right. It is the transition from flat to immersive. And it's just an immersive internet. It's not an immersive metaverse. Metaverse is just a way to describe an immersive internet. So I think people are getting caught up in trying to put a definitive definition, that almost sounds redundant, but definition on what the metaverse really is. And I think one of the missing pieces or the only missing piece at this point right now to connect all the dots are just people's awareness to understand what's at their fingertips. This is going to change lives. It's going to change lives, and we're experiencing this right now. It's going to change lives in the way that poor children in remote parts of Africa and other parts of the world, third parts of the world, are going to be able to learn through internet technology, but in an immersive way like they never could before. I'll give a very quick example. Recently, we took a small group of children through an aircraft hangar with some helicopters that were inside of it. And just using a computer keyboard, they were able to walk inside the hangar and then go right inside this helicopter and sit at the controls of a helicopter. Now, you can imagine children with limited means and resources in those parts of the world not being able to do that. And all of a sudden, with a keyboard, they're able to do it. It's really about inspiring future generations. And we're excited to be a part of it. Fuller, I'm not your age. I'm a little bit older, as you can probably tell, but I feel like I'm your age when I'm talking about all this stuff.
Yes, you look younger. That's
thank
great. Yeah, that's great explanation. It's a battery internet, basically. So you think, yeah, it's great, great one. So Jimmy, so how about you? What's your understanding about the metaverse?
Yeah, for sure. So I think I can describe it through a comparison of relativity. And I think to begin, I believe that if you were to talk about it, comparing it to the internet or this idea of Web3, I think that understanding is very limited, because when you look at the metaverse, you can't compare it to something that we've previously established, right? And it's a complete paradigm shift. So let me try to describe it in how I see it. Now, if we were to compare our overall sensory experience of the world in a scale, okay, and let's say that current scale is 1 to 100. Let's say the average person experiences 5 out of the 100 of all possibilities, okay? And let's say that 100 is the collective experience of humankind, right, throughout history. So someone who might be really well traveled and had a lot of like a lot of life experiences, maybe they can go up to like a 10 or a 20. Now, what I believe the metaverse can do is that within the next 3 years, an average person, right, a daily, like you and I, anyone around here, can now have access to a spectrum of 1,000. So that spectrum went up from 100 to 1,000. And now within the next decade, that spectrum is going to be approaching 1 billion. And beyond that, it'll be approaching infinity. And I think that's really the power of the metaverse, is that it essentially puts on an infinite dimension of how we can experience reality that, because it's subjective, right? So if we want to, travel into space, now we have that capability. If we want to experience something that is only existent in our imagination, now we have that capability. So yeah, that's what makes me really excited to be a part of this space.
That's awesome. So you think it's a way to the infinity, and so which one that we cannot imaginations in here, right? That's a great one. Thanks. And Henry, so how about you? I know you look into this Web3 since 20 years ago. So what's your understanding of the metaverse?
Yeah. So the Web3, I proposed back in like 2003, but at that time, the concept is different from the Web3 nowadays, because that's a very early stage. So the Web2 is just available at that time. It's MySpace and Facebook, and they enabled users can interact with each other. So that at that time, Web2 defined as the interaction. Okay, users interaction. It's different from the Web1. Okay, so when I first proposed Web3, it's about AI plus the Web2. Okay, so because at that time the language is a very a huge barrier for the people to communicate with each other. Therefore, I actually combined the machine translation and with the Web2. So that's not revolutionary. Okay, but this concept was also followed by like Tim Berners-Lee, who is a founding father for the World Wide Web. It's called the semantic web. So at that time, our definition is about semantic web. Okay, so right now the Web3 is actually partial of the definitions belong to the semantic web. But the most important part is actually the data ownership and data privacy. That's a critical part for the Web3. And also the value transfer. Okay, so we met difficulties when we trying to do offline value transfer back in 2012. At that time, we do offline communications without like a base station, tower. Cell phones can communicate with each other, but how can cell phones transfer value without centralized server? At that time, we actually met the real challenge of how to build Web3. And I think almost at the same year, Dan Larimer, who proposed the DAO, and he's the first one to propose blockchain-based DAO. So at that time, I'm building offline protocols for the Web3. So, and we realized that, and in the 2017, at that time, the Web3 protocol is almost ready. And at the same time, Tim Berners-Lee trying to build Web3 in a different approach. This approach can mildly let those giants migrate to Web3 because they are trying to, make the Web2 more powerful, right? Like Meta. Even though change from Facebook to Meta, and they want Web2 to be much more stronger because they want to keep the status, right? They want to keep the position that they can make more profit from users' data. So that's Web2 and all those, so-called metaverse from the giants. But Web3 is all about take back our web from the day one. Okay, so that means user owns the data and also they have the privacy. Okay, the data can be used by other like big data algorithm, but they have to keep the privacy for the users and also reward users with token. So plus offline, because offline capability is very important to distributed network. Okay, so at this moment, the Web3 protocol is complete, and Metaverse is built on Web3. So without Web3, without NFT, so it's only virtual reality. It's only a virtual world, and it's very dangerous because the ownership is not belong to users. So the more you get involved with like so-called metaverse from the giants, big companies, the more dangerous. It's just like Ready Player One, and the main actor is so dangerous because he gotta be killed. Okay, so what we mentioned here today is open metaverse, and based on Web3 is the future for humanity.
Okay, thank you, Henry. So you think that Metaverse is a new platform or a new dimension to transfer the value, right? So that's a very great point. Then Aaron, so yeah, we know you are very well-known investors. That so I want to ask if from an investor point of view, so what is Metaverse?
Well, Metaverse to me is a virtual world where there will be new way for people to socialize, interact, and more importantly, make transactions. That's why we build a hash brown swap for people to be able to conduct financial transactions using cryptos and hold assets via NFTs in the wallet.
Thank you, Aaron. It's a very short but very conservative one. So thanks, Aaron. And yeah, it seems that so everyone has unique understanding of Metaverse and have different focus in this field. And I believe that that's why we gathered all of you to our webinar. So in the past months, I was watching a lot of the videos and reading up that on these topics on Metaverse. And in fact, I find that this Metaverse is not a new idea to me, at least, because or to the people who are into the gaming. And we've been doing this since the early 2000s. The 3D games, that was the booster 3D games era. But since the last year, this topic has been picked up by people once more. So I want to ask what technology brought this trend or to reheat this trend? And or in other words, so which technology do you think from the past few years that could be regarded as a millstone that in the Metaverse area? And Luis, I would like to listen to your thoughts.
Sure. So this is a topic I think about a lot, especially because I was involved in VR and AR way back in the early 90s and founded a VR company in 1993. And I can say, back in 93, 94, people, there was an industry that was excited about the metaverse. That word was really only used in science fiction, not in the industry, but there was a really vibrant community. And most people back then really believed that within 10 years, by the end of the 90s, virtual reality would be everywhere. And it wasn't. And in fact, what happened is around 1996, 1997, virtual reality just fell off the end of the world. It kind of became a dirty word among investors because all of the focus was the internet. And that really makes sense because the internet was required really to have a real virtual and augmented reality experience. And there was this winter really from 1997 to 2012. And a lot of people wonder, well, what really happened in 2012 that made this field come back again? And it's easy for people to think about, well, there were headsets that started coming out, the Oculus, and they think, they focus on the technologies of the eyewear as the most essential technology. And I think really the technology that brought virtual reality back from the dead was the iPhone. Really, 2007, iPhone came out. Over a 5-year period, it took over the world, and that really made flat, small screens very inexpensive, processors very inexpensive, motion sensors very inexpensive, GPS very inexpensive. And so by 2012, you really could have a resurgence of this field. And in the time since, there have been technologies that I think are really, really valuable. I think the push to 5G, really helpful. The push for GPUs to make graphics engines better, really helpful. I think Web3 and NFTs are really interesting for the metaverse, and that's really helpful. Software engines like Unity, really helpful. And so I think there's been a lot of things that have happened recently that have allowed the technology to mature. And but the biggest thing I think is that the first wave of virtual reality was really pushed by startups. This second wave is really pushed by major players, by Facebook and Google and Microsoft and Apple and so I don't think there will be another winter because there's so much momentum behind it.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Excellent. So as you say, as you said, so iPhone and the other, so the following the technologies like 5G, it's like IoT say, it's a technology that could help this trend. That's a very great one. It's so the answer iPhone is, and I never thought it like such a answer. That's a great. It's a very inspiring one. So Henry, so what would you pick? So which technology that you think could be the catalyst that in the past few years?
So it's a blockchain technology. Okay.
Blockchain.
So
nice.
yeah, back like in 2016, and I'm doing the social network plus like a virtual reality, like live streaming, this kind of a thing. So at that time, it's only a virtual reality, right? But until the blockchain NFT, and actually, like that's I think the year before last year. Okay, so NFT, like it's non-fungible token, which can allow our virtual reality, the objects, the assets, can be uniquely defined, located, and transferred the value. So at that time, the virtual becomes real. So the virtual becomes real. Why we call it virtual becomes real? I actually pursue my PhD study and in Northwestern. The department is astronomy and physics. So I'm very interested in the universe. Okay, so there are a lot of like objects in the real universe. Okay, but the virtual world, we can create anything, right? You can copy a lot of things. So that's not a metaverse. Okay, because value cannot transfer. In the real universe, there's only one, right? So we have one unique Earth, right? There may be another Earth in another, solar system in the galaxy, but everyone's different. So until the blockchain technology brings NFT and to the virtual world, and we probably have this difficulty to identify, original object. Okay, so blockchain technology is definitely behind all this. And even though, I proposed like Web3 back like in 2003, and Tim Berners-Lee also proposed semantic Web3, and back in like 2006. At that time, I don't think the Web3 is complete. So until like 2013, Dan Larimer, and 2014, Gavin Wood, and also add in protocols, and until like actually 2017, the Web3 protocol is complete. And in 2019, when NFT and becomes popular and attract a lot of attentions, and the metaverse at that time do make sense. Okay, but there's a hype of metaverse. So, and also big companies like to take this opportunity to make more profit, but that's against the evolution of Web3. So definitely the metaverse in the future will be open one. It's the data cannot be on the centralized server. So that's why right now, and I and Dan Larimer, and we are advising one project called MetaLife, which is the pure Web3 and the protocol. So that's a social network protocol. It's a peer-to-peer, no centralized server at all. Okay, all the data belongs to the user. It's on their cell phone. Actually, if your cell phone have MetaLife and other people, for example, all of us have MetaLife, and we can go, into deep mountains, or we can go on Mars. We can still communicate. We don't need centralized server. Like, for example, Facebook and Twitter need centralized server, right? So you cannot access Facebook from Mars because the distance is so huge. It takes 4 minutes for light to travel back and forth. So the TCP/IP doesn't work. Okay, so I think the blockchain technology is behind all today's metaverse. But a lot of people want to do Web 2 metaverse. So I think we want to clarify this, and I hope the real metaverse can be built, and through the effort of all of us. Okay.
Thank you, Henry. So you think the blockchain and NFT is a key technology that helps this trend to happen again? So yes, thank you. And so Kevin, I know you're managing a platform that's using the XR, like VR, AR, and MR. So what do you think about this question? And do you think that the VR AR makes the investors flock into the metaverse one more time? So could you share your thoughts?
25 years ago, if you needed an electrician or if you needed a plumber, you picked up a thing called the Yellow Pages, and you flipped through it like this, and you found the biggest ad, and you think, I'm going to call that one. I'm going to call that electrician, or I'm going to call that plumber. And they got a page on their hip, and they looked at a little pager, and they ran to a phone booth, or they borrowed a phone from somebody else's office. Yeah. And then you got your electrician or your plumber came to your house or to your office to do the work. And then along came the internet. And then that became how we discovered where to find an electrician or get answers to these amazing questions with a million different options. I remember the news stories where, Google search first came out, or Yahoo search first started. And here we are today at this very moment where virtually every business or every entity or nonprofit organization on the planet has a two-dimensional website. And within the next 2 to 3 years, the vast majority of them are going to have three-dimensional immersive websites. I do in particular, anywhere from a dozen to 24 tours with organizations and companies from all over the world. And we take them on a metaverse journey through classrooms, and we take them to boardrooms, and we take them to concert halls, and we take them inside of a 360-degree video. So imagine an Arctic expedition that is filmed in 360 degrees. And you're talking to people that are Inuit, that live in the far north, and you're communicating with them, and you're filming this experience. And you want to share that with children from all over the world to inspire them to be mindful of what's happening to the polar ice caps, as an example. So you provide this environment through the metaverse for them to experience this 360-degree video where they can literally walk into it. We're doing this now on our platform. So imagine being able to walk into this this recorded video and look around in 360 degrees like this and watch people being interviewed or doing what it is they do in real life in that part of the world. and then having that person come into the video with you and have a conversation with you as an avatar. That's all possible right now. The technology that's going to make this all work, I think, is hardware. I think that the metaverse and the programmers and people like Jimmy and Henry and others that are thinkers and that are ahead of the curve, I think the metaverse is a little bit ahead of the hardware. And when the hardware catches up, it's going to change the world. It's going to change millions, if not billions, of lives around the world. I like the graphic in behind Henry and all the connected dots. Google Earth is a digital twin of the planet right now. And we know that AR is being layered on top of that as we speak in all over the world. Next thing is, you're not only going to be able to see where that street is in Italy. You're going to be able to walk inside the building and experience the art and experience the glory of the Renaissance in Florence, for example. And we've already got experience doing that. So it's a thrill to be a part of it.
Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. So yeah, so sharing, we learned that you guys think that like iPhone, 5G, IoT, and blockchain and NFT, and also you mentioned the 3D dimensions or 3060 wheels that helps this. It's the reason why that the metaverse is being brought into the public wheels again. And yes, so we may notice that the top tech giants such as Facebook, or I say the Meta or the Microsoft, who acquired the Blazor this month, and there's always a voice that is aiming to the layout in the metaverse area, and also some like big companies in China like Tencent and Baidu, they are also building some platforms that like the virtual reality, like metaverse. So there's always been no questions in this area. So do you think the current technology giants like Meta, like Microsoft, could be the next dominant powers in this area, in metaverse area? Or do you think the smaller ones then would have more opportunities in this wave? So I would like to start with you, Aaron. So what do you think?
Although technology giants like Microsoft and Meta may have the first mover advantage, but history tells us that for a new industry, it is more likely to be dominated by new players. If the metaverse space has high speed of technology innovations and rapid market growth, certain startups will be more likely to become the dominant players of the future. That's my view.
Okay. Thank you, Aaron. So you think this trend will be started by the giants like today, what is happening, and then the smaller players like in the different companies, different countries, they will be the dominant power, right? So thank you. It's a very unique angle. And so Jimmy, so what do you think? So do you believe that the smaller companies then will have the opportunities or have more opportunities in this trend? Hi, Jimmy.
Yeah, sorry, thought I was muted. Yeah, sorry. So your question was, do I believe smaller economies will have more opportunities? Is that the question?
Yes. In this area, in this metaverse.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most certainly. What surprised me actually was when we raised our strategic sales round on through cryptocurrency. See, I mean, we're a North American-based company, so I would have assumed that the majority of our VCs would have came from, well, US or Canada, but that definitely wasn't the case. We spoke to people from Ukraine. We spoke to people from Singapore. We spoke to people from Vietnam. We spoke to people from China. And I think in terms of blockchain interest, it is most certainly decentralized. But what makes it very interesting is that developed countries like the US and Canada almost has an adverse relationship with the rise of crypto. And it's because of how disruptive the nature of it is. So really, the stronger the financial industry is, the stronger the government regulations are within a country, the more of a threat introducing blockchain has. And to give you an example of that, our game is built on the Binance Smart Chain. And ironically, Binance is actually banned in Ontario and the province of Toronto, where I'm from. So there's a huge irony to that, right? Coming out of that. So I do think that in the future, like in terms of the general like economic trend, if you look at history, you can see that certain empires kind of rise and collapse as we kind of progress through centuries of development. So previous to there was the UK, previous to that there was the Dutch Empire, and now we have the US, right? But really I think we can more or less say that it's kind of on the decline phase, right? How long that'll take? Probably faster than most other empires because of exponential growth of technology. But I think what's really interesting today is that obviously we have a contender, right? And usually when one empire goes down, another comes up, and that contender, it's obvious it's going to be China. But I think for the first time, there's a nuance to that history that has never been made possible before. And what that nuance is that there's an alternative. And that alternative is to rather having a centralized power approach where, Shanghai maybe becomes the center of the world. Rather, I believe what's going to happen is that, it's going to take a bit of that kind of prominence, but more so, there's going to be power that's distributed on a decentralized approach, right? And just like what Henry and a lot of people have been saying, this open system concept, right? So I do think that given the metaverse structure, it's going to be able to democratize that financial power, and really provide a new narrative in history that we've never experienced before.
Thanks, Jamie. So you do think that the large giants, the main players, or the small players, we could both have the opportunities in this field, right? And so that's but we will not know currently, but it will happen in the future. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, for sure. Like I think especially looking at China, it's really kind of taken on in some ways. But it's also limited a lot of access, right? So I do think the large players, they almost have to tread with a lot of caution that they make this a strength and something that propels their economy versus something that will collapse it.
Yeah.
And I do think that a lot of people are recognizing. I mean, Binance has more trading volume than the New York Stock Exchange, London Stock Exchange, and the Tokyo Stock Exchange combined, right? So Wall Street and New York recognizing that they're both afraid, but also interested in getting a part of that wealth. So there is a level of a high risk, but also a high opportunity for developed countries.
Sure. Thank you. And so Luis, so what's your opinion of this question? So do you think that could be the giant or could be the dominant power, or the SMBs, the small and middle companies that could be the power, or maybe they could have a very open metaverse in the future that everyone could log in? And so what do you think, Luis?
So I would be greatly in favor of an open metaverse that is free from control of centralized platforms. I think it's the right aspiration. I do think it's early to say that the large platform providers won't prevail. I do think that Apple, Google, Microsoft have a lot of power in this space because they will control hardware, and by controlling hardware, they will control developers, and they will follow the same model that Apple followed for the iPhone. Building a developer economy or a developer infrastructure that gives them control. And yes, there are small players that are doing really interesting things. The large players have a tendency to acquire the most interesting ones and consume them. And so I think I guess I worry again, I'm very much a proponent of an open metaverse. I worry that there will be closed platforms that take advantage of technologies like NFTs and Web3 to share some content, to allow transactions, but there's still a lot of centralized control. I think there's still a good chance that happens because of the extreme power that the large technology companies have.
Thank you, Luis. It's very thoughtful. Yeah, they both have the opportunity according to your saying. Yes. So yeah, I would like to going back to the meta a bit more, but I do want to touch a little bit on yeah, like Henry's mentioned that the NFT, the non-fungible token, so which is very also popular among young ages, especially when this metaverse entered to the public eyes again, and so we would like to learn about what's your opinions about so how NFT could help to build a metaverse, so and how does NFT to work with the financial system then in the metaverse. So Aaron, I want to start with you.
NFTs will affect the metaverse in disrupting the way people socialize, interact, and make transactions. Avatars representing a person's real or imagined identity can be moved around from platform to platform via NFTs in the metaverse. Well, that's the same thing for all other kinds of asset in the metaverse. And I believe DeFi is the financial infrastructure for the metaverse. DeFi has already gained momentum in the physical world. And there's no doubt that DeFi will be the financial system for financial transactions in the metaverse using cryptocurrencies. And we have built Hash Brown Swap, or HBS, which is an open cross-chain DeFi platform designed for everyone to use. And easy to use DeFi is important for mass adoption of metaverse application. We made DeFi easy to use, so a person with no crypto or DeFi knowledge or experience can access HBS wallet with no software download. Okay, using a mobile phone or notebook computer, a user can open our web browser-based platform, click on the wallet icon, and log in via email address. After entering verification code received in the email, the wallet is activated. And also, user no longer need to know the concept of private key, as all the private keys are securely and automatically controlled by smart contracts. Token withdrawal will use both email and Google Authenticator as an additional layer of security. And most importantly is people will never lose their tokens again by not remembering their private keys, because nobody ever sees their private key, including themselves.
Thanks for sharing about how NFT is and what's DeFi's works in this area, in this process. So Jimmy, I want to pass the microphone to you. So what do you think that how I know you are playing you found a platform that have the horse racing, that every horse could be our NFT, that could be our virtual assets and your platform. So what do you think about this NFT, and what do you yeah, this question?
Yeah, for sure. So really the NFT, I think why Facebook did what they did with the brand transition and why the metaverse is so hot right now is because basically the proof of concept of NFTs have already passed the stage, right? And why that's so powerful is because NFTs are essentially the building block of the metaverse itself. So really, if you look at like real life, and if you think as it relates to the financial sector, which I guess goes to your second question, what provides financial value, right? There's only a couple of things, right? There's assets, so like unique items, which NFTs essentially replace in the metaverse. There's commodities, right? So something that is fungible by definition, right? Gold, silver, currencies, right? And all of that is now replaceable through tokens. So I think what is really interesting is that everything that, the economy itself is a mental construct, right? And it only exists because we believe it exists, right? So it's the collective belief of the crowd, of humanity, that makes the economy happen. But now this collective belief can now transfer into this virtual concept of ours. So take every possibility of, what we've created with the economy, but now you can multiply that to infinitum within the metaverse and infinitum on the financial scale. But what's interesting with this is that it doesn't have the devastation and the negative repercussions that the current financial model, like the current financial models in the economy doesn't account for, which obviously is like economic devastation, right? Like all of that, like it doesn't have that baggage to come with it. So I do think that that's in terms of how it relates to the financial system. I think it's there to essentially like augment and magnify that potentiality by an infinite amount of growth. Now, to answer your last, I think you mentioned something about before cryptos replacing a legal currency. Was that a part of your question?
Yes, you could mention. So
Yeah.
you can
Okay.
also
Sure.
share this.
Okay. I had that in my notes. So I think related to that, so look, like I don't know if people, like we're creating a game right now to essentially like replace these economic the potential of the real world economy, but putting that into the crypto economy and into the metaverse. So I think the question is, in the future, is like, is this going to be mainstream? Like, are people going to just simply adopt cryptocurrency rather like as a mainstream form of payment? So first of all, like I'm not a fortune teller, right? I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I do see there's going to be three outcomes, right? And the three is kind of driven by one major problem that we have right now. And what that problem, and really why I started this company, is that the world's completely separated right now, right? There's a lot of agency issues, right? Different countries having different agendas themselves. So it's really hard to connect as a collective. And frankly, I mean, like a lot of the plans of the UN and all that, I don't have a lot of faith in that, simply because in the current economic structure, no one's incentivized to pursue those because of, like game theory and a lot of that mentality. So really, like, how do we really connect ourselves as a global unit in order to solve what are essentially the laundry list of existential threats that we have to humanity that might essentially put out civilization in the next 100 years, right? So I can see three possibilities. So the first is that we do adopt cryptocurrency, we do adopt the metaverse concept, blockchain structures, and NFTs in order to really organize our world in a way that is beyond simply like individual country regulations. Again, open system, decentralized. And then second, and it's, it's unfortunate, but our world's going to collapse, right? We're going to collapse into global war, right? Over food, water, livable land, all of the resource shortages that's going to be happening. Not even, in the long future, but like within the next decade, 2 decades, you're going to start seeing that unfold. And I guess the third one, just wishful thinking, is maybe there's a magic pill that will save humanity, right? Maybe some aliens will visit us, show us the way. Bill Gates will take over the world, develop his own system and like rule us all, or like, like financial elites end up killing off 90% of the population. And, we would kind of do a reset there, right? So those are, I guess, like, I like to think about like, what are the possibilities? I like to say that maybe the last set might be less possible, but those are the three. So blockchain currently is kind of our best bet moving forward.
Yeah, always thinking about the probability is a great thing. Yes. So thanks, Jamie. So yes, we will be talking about the centralized and the decentralized. But at the meantime, so there's many people who are concerned about the safety of their virtual assets, like they buying some NFTs and in their metaverse, or say they're also very worried about the regulations in the metaverse. So I would like to hear. So Henry, so you have been working on this area, and what do you think that the centralized what do you think that will be the regulations in the metaverse? So do you think the decentralized means deregulated? I want listen to your thought. Thanks.
Yeah. So that's a hard question. Okay, so because right now the technology is always in the frontier, and regulation should be behind the technology. And sometimes the new technology, especially blockchain, cryptocurrency, can be used in money laundering and a lot of it's a lot of places where it's need regulation, definitely. And even open metaverse also need regulation. That's for sure. Okay. So but what is the form of the regulation? And it's the first time that the world is going to build an open metaverse. I mean, together, right? It's not like a metaverse controlled by one of the giants, right? So for example, Meta, Microsoft, they are building metaverse, okay? That's centralized. So centralized metaverse, of course, need regulation. And there's always ways and to regulate. But, but the situation is getting worse. And the Facebook, Twitter have more and more issues. And that's even in the Web2 area, But, one immersive virtual world, attract most people's attention and time, that can be even more dangerous. So the regulation will be much more harder. I mean, sometimes it cannot help. That's why we have Web3. So for Web2, people tend to don't be evil. But for Web3, is you can't be evil. So that's the critical part. Okay. So, but for the regulation, I think the most important part probably will be DAO. The decentralized, autonomous organization will be the main feature for the open metaverse. And governments and NGO will all be part of that. Okay, because governments represents only one country, but metaverse belong to humanity. So it's very challenging to regulate open metaverse. Okay, because so many companies are trying to build things together. Their NFT can cross-chain anywhere, right? It's a non-fungible token and uniquely identified in the whole universe. Okay, so no country's law or rule can, actually can rule the whole metaverse. So that proposed, a very new, form of regulation, and DAO will play the most key part of the role. Okay, so that's why, right now I, work with Dan Larimer, and he was the guy proposed the DAO. But nowadays, with the coming of open metaverse, it is becoming more and more important. For example, in Facebook, a lot of countries just block Facebook, right? And Facebook just blocked a lot of countries. Even Twitter blocked the president of the United States, right? And for centralized system, and they can ask people not talk, close your mouth, right? So that's the power of the centralized system. Okay, so a lot of people, don't want listen to like President Trump, but it's his freedom to speak. So that's why we talk about a decentralized social network. That will be the foundation for the open metaverse. So it cannot be like, okay, you log in open metaverse with your Facebook account or Twitter account. It's ridiculous. right? It's ridiculous. And, you know, in Web 2 era, and you hand in your user information to this centralized company. And in Metaverse era, if you hand in your every gesture, your every move, your breath, your heartbeat to those centralized company, that's that's dangerous, right? That's dangerous, and that's impossible. So basically, open metaverse Web3 is a revolution. It's not a natural, like a evolution or proposed by like Tim Berners-Lee, and he, you know, came up with the solution of solid. Okay, solid, and also internet contract of the internet. But the giant, you know, they signed the agreement, but they never did it, right? Because why? We have all the data we can utilize, we can make money, right? If there's no revolution power behind it, if there's no small player who trying to build a real Web3, and they're not going to change anything, okay? And Metaverse only help them to make the data more centralized. This is against the spirit of internet. So internet, you know, actually the concept was initially proposed by League Leiter. And it happened that, and he was my, you know, respected alumni. He also graduated from Washington University in St. Louis, from the physics department, which is my original major. Okay, but I pursued my PhD in Washington University in St. Louis, and you know, like in like 2001, and when he proposed, that's intergalactic network, that's totally decentralized, and the Web 2 and those powers move more centralized. Now we need revolutionize from the protocols. The problem is with the protocols, it has no layer of value. So now, you know, for smart mesh, we add this layer of value into the protocols. And then we make, like Meshbox, make decentralized, you know, the smart devices, which can connect each other in a mesh way, in a totally decentralized way. And this Meshbox can be even brought to like Mars and to build a decentralized network even without a centralized tower. So with just where LEO as internet access, a completely decentralized network, we call value network, can be built. And upon this peer-to-peer, the applications and the data belongs to the user itself, okay? But the problem comes. So if every user owns their data, and also they have the freedom to publish anything, then how about hatred? How about pornography? And you know, how about, you know, because every country have their own, you know, ideology, right? And you know, some countries are in war. How do their people coexist in the metaverse? So that comes to DAO. So the DAO will help the open metaverse governance. And also only smart contract is not enough. Okay, we cannot depend everything on machine code because, you know, that is pre-designed to develop the smart contract and cannot adapt to a lot of situations that humanity may encounter in the future. So a subjective governance is also critical. So that's what, you know, and I and like Dan Larimer trying to advise MetaLife is trying to do. It's a pure decentralized like social network, but with a subjective governance. And this is a lesson and Dan Larimer learned from Steemit and from Voice, which is, according to his opinion, is not much, cannot be you know, a successful projects, but he got the lesson that governance is critical. Yes, I also think so. Therefore, you know, open metaverse is cross borders. only subjective governance can help, every country, every government, every person to have their voice and to make a subjective consensus about the social network and metaverse. Yeah.
Thank you, Henry. So you think the DOL will be the key of this of the regulations in the metaverse? That's very nice. So Kevin, so I want to jump to you. So how do you think the regulation should be then in a metaverse? So how will the metaverse solve like some risk like digital securities problem? So what do you think?
Well, the metaverse and all of its technology is not going to change human nature, and unfortunately, human nature is both good and evil. So they're going to be bad companies. They're going to be bad actors that are going to try to find ways to exploit the internet. But I think that we talked, and it's almost coming full circle to one of the topics that you talked about earlier, which is, what companies are going to dominate. I think what's going to happen is underdogs are going to have a much greater chance than they've ever had before because of the unintended consequences of very large companies. We're all familiar with, what happened with Facebook and its privacy and the challenges that it faced as a publicly traded company trying to satisfy their shareholders. They didn't start out that way to deliberately become like that, but it was the unintended consequences that a lot of large companies in that space have faced. So there's an enormous market sentiment against those large companies. And that's not to disparage them, but there is a very large sentiment that people do not want to get trapped into that kind of a world again, where they feel like, as Henry said, their data and their privacy are all compromised. And I think that metaverse platforms, whether it's ours or the many companies that are out there, are all designing themselves now with a policy of privacy by design. That's one of the terms. And that's really, really important. It's important to investors. The same way that the green economy is important to investors on Bay Street today. If you're a mining company in any jurisdiction in the world, for example, if you're not mining responsibly, if you are not planning for closure in your jurisdiction, investors won't touch you. You have to be responsible. That's going to be one of the big changes, I think, that's going to come as a result of a new generation of people building the new internet. And that's really what the metaverse is. I'll come back to what I said earlier, that I like to think of metaverse as an adjective. It's more of a meta version of the existing internet. And it's just remarkable to watch companies like Jimmy's. It's remarkable to hear, investment bankers talk about how excited they are about what is happening. It's a new frontier. It's a renaissance of the internet. And people that are in their 20s and in their teens right now are participating in it. We've heard those stories of young people that have created their own NFTs and have done remarkable things with them. Young teenagers. That's the future of the internet world, and is going to be a very big part of the economy. One of the things that I think is not going to happen, that is part of the mainstream narrative right now, is about avatars being a unidimensional avatar, being able to go from one platform to another. That's never going to happen. Ever, ever, ever. People are dreaming about it. They're talking about it. Well, I could just have one avatar and I can go from this platform to another platform to another platform. That's never going to happen, because those individual platforms are going to want to monetize those avatars. People want to wear a nice jacket or a tie or a funny hat or all kinds of accessories that those platforms are going to monetize. So it is what it is. We have one of the advisors on our company is a veteran television film and television producer, and he has a young daughter who gets a $20 a week allowance. I don't know about the rest of you, but when I got my allowance, Louis, you and I could probably relate to this. When I got my allowance, I went down to the shopping mall, and if I could find something for that $5, that's what I was going to buy. Or I went to the bowling alley and maybe I played a couple of games of bowling with my friends. Now, kids are taking the $20, they're handing it right back to mom and saying, Mom, can you give me $20 on your credit card? Because I really want to have a cool looking shirt or a cool looking pair of running shoes over in my game so I can hang out with my friends. They're not going to the shopping mall. They're going to these virtual spaces, and that's where they're spending their money. Okay, we can argue with it. We can get, we can pontificate about it and moralize about it, but it is what it is. And we all have 72-inch screens in our homes as well. We're not going to the theaters anymore either. So the world is changing, and I think NFTs are going to play a big part of that. And the metaverse and platforms like Henry's and others are going to absolutely carve out a big place in the market, that right alongside the biggest names in social media and the internet today.
Thank you, Kevin. So you think that there's the large platforms or different platforms to never merge together. So, and they all have their own policy about their platforms, right? So that's a great idea. That's great. So I will jump to Lois. So your criticism says you are always say that there should be a harsher regulations than in this area. So what do you think about this? So how do you think the regulations should be than in the metaverse or in the virtual world?
Yeah, so I think there's this difference between the idealistic view of where this industry goes and the risk of where it can go. I think that certainly in the short term, there will be platform providers. Meta will be a platform provider. Apple will be a platform provider. Microsoft will be a platform provider. That will happen. I think those platforms will adopt some aspects of Web3 and NFTs for allocating ownership. I think that's easy for them to do. I even think they will do a better job of protecting privacy, but it doesn't change the fact that these platforms can still do very, very dangerous things. Inside the metaverse, they will be able, I like to think of the three risks of the metaverse as being monitoring, manipulating, and monetizing, these three M's. And in whether your data is stored decentralized or centralized, if you are building a virtual or augmented world and you're the platform provider, you will have to have the ability to track what people are doing, where they're looking, how long their gaze is lingering. You'll be tracking their facial expressions. You'll be tracking their vocal inflections. You will have access. You need access to that data to be able to simulate what's happening around them. And these platforms will use that data to monetize their customers, their users. They will monetize those users most likely through an advertising model. Now, the world could transition off of advertising models. It's not going to happen 5 years from now. 5 years from now, when Apple launches their augmented reality glasses and people are walking down the street, Apple will have the ability to know where you are, what you're looking at, which stores you slow down and look at, and will be able to advertise to you. And unless it's regulated, they will be able to advertise to you in the metaverse in much more insidious ways than they can do right now. And I say that because the entire point of the technology of the metaverse is to fool your senses. That's what we do when we design a virtual and augmented reality system. We're fooling your senses to make you think things that are not real are real. And so in the metaverse, if it's not regulated, you as a user will be confronted by product placements that are put into the metaverse that you don't necessarily even know were put there for you to discover. You might think, oh, I'm walking down the street, and whether it's a virtual street or an augmented street, and I see lots of people drinking a particular soft drink, and I might think, oh, that's a popular soft drink these days, and I might not realize that somebody paid, a third party paid to put that into my experience. I've been targeted in ways, and again, we think of targeting in Web 2 as pop-up ads or videos that pop up. Again, in the metaverse, which is designed to fool your senses, there will be product placements that will be designed to make you think things about your world that somebody paid to put there. There will even be AI agents, avatars controlled by AI that are designed to influence you. These agents will engage you in promotional conversation. They will have access to some level of data about you, and their goal is to sell you something or to make you believe something. And so I believe that the platforms need to be regulated to prevent this. Because it's too easy for users to be manipulated. And there are simple regulations that could be done. For example, requiring platforms to inform users if they're being targeted. To inform users if a product placement is happening, they should at least know that they didn't just come across that content serendipitously. It was placed there by a paying advertiser. Somebody paid Facebook or Apple to put that there for you to discover. If you at least know that's a paid placement, you're less likely to be manipulated. If an avatar engages you in a conversation and you can't tell the difference of whether it's an AI agent or just some other person in the environment, and that AI agent is engaging you in a promotional conversation, you need to be informed of that. And so I believe that regulation is really important to protect consumers in these platforms. I do believe that these issues of privacy and ownership and the things that blockchain does really helps, but I think that's not going to be enough to prevent these platforms from doing things that are just, and again, they're not evil. Their business model is to advertise to people. They've already shown us that targeted advertising works. That's how they make their money. And targeted advertising in worlds where you can't tell the difference between what is real and what's not real is way more dangerous. And regulation becomes even more important in the metaverse than in social media.
Fuller, with your permission, could I add just a little bit of a comment to what Louis was saying?
Sure.
Thank you. So one of the interesting conversations on that exact topic that I had recently with a group of individuals was around the premise that you could choose what is being marketed to you in order to gain access to a platform. So I'll use Jimmy's game as an example. So imagine that the demographic for your game was, I don't know, let's say it was 18 to 30-year-olds, and 6 or 7 different companies wanted to be able to get their brand in front of your users. One of the interesting questions that came up was whether or not the consumer would be willing to say, okay, in order to gain access to this for free, to go and watch horses race or some other kind of entertainment value, okay, I'll watch a McDonald's commercial for 10 seconds, or I'll watch a Pepsi commercial for 10 seconds. Those brand advertisers will quickly find out where they need to park their money, because right now they're scattering it everywhere. And the big companies are saying, hey, we've got the data, we'll put you in front of all these eyeballs. I think there might be a shift, that it's an interesting question to ponder whether or not consumers will stand back and say, okay, yeah, you know what? I realize this software is being provided to me for free. Somebody has to pay for it. And by the way, there's a remarkable article that I recommend that everybody watching this video read. It's an interesting blog by Moxie Marlinspike at moxie.org. It's all about the servers. The companies that control the servers are the ones that are going to control the marketplace. And only the biggest companies in the world have server capacity. When individual server capacity technology, and I know that there are companies working on it right now, when they are able to deliver hundreds of thousands and millions of users to startup companies that can bypass those big servers, and we all know who they are, that's going to be a game changer as well. And I think you're going to see that based on some of the conversations that I've been a party to. I think you're going to see that emerge sometime before the end of this year.
Thank you, Kevin, for your supplement, and thank you, Louis. You believe that there's much harsher regulations is needed, and also thank you, Kevin. You mentioned that there's someone is doing this to become doing the regulator things that in this market, right? That's really great to know. So let's go back to the focusing on the investment side, and it's also the last questions. I will pass my microphone to Aaron. So you, as the investor, or as the investor who focusing on the cutting edge technology, so I wonder, what are the features of the companies that with potential then in the metaverse areas? So do you think when you are looking to the investment targets, so which kind of companies are you would be prefer?
Well, right now we're totally focused on investing in DeFi, or financial aspects of the space. And as Metaverse will facilitate people's view about in the virtual world. Actually, it's a great place to display products. You can put a house you want to sell in the metaverse, the car you want to sell in there. People can go in, change the color, change the material to get a good feel of it. And that would definitely help facilitate business transactions. That's what our platform, Hash Brown Swap, is dedicated to provide to the people in the metaverse to do transactions.
Thank you. So as you said, so you are mainly looking for the people, for the companies that could help to the facility to transfer their values or business into the virtual world. So that's your criteria, right? That's where.
Well, actually, transaction in the metaverse is not limited to a digital asset. You can also transfer physical world asset via security tokens. Like Jimmy's game, I think it can achieve that already.
Okay, thanks for sharing. Yeah, thank you for your insights, sharing about what kind of things, what kind of characteristics that we are looking for when we want to find the investment targets. That's very insightful. Yeah, okay, thanks everyone. Thank you all of you, Aaron, Henry, Jimmy, Kevin, and Louis, for being here for this panel, and thank you for your awesome and insight point on Metaverse. So we are so appreciated that you can join us today. So this recorded video of today's panel so will be uploaded to different platforms such as YouTube. And for investors, the people who watch this video, I hope all of you could have a better understanding of Meta and Web3, and also the other technology like blockchain, NFT, how they play a part in this world. And also I want all of you to have a better understanding of how to find the investment targets in this area. So if you head to EqualOcean.com, you can find out more about these topics, and you can find out the contact methods of all the panelists who will be here today. And we also provide other inside articles that are in the different sectors and industries. So please stay tuned with EqualOcean online webinar program. And until next time, and thank you for being here and for all our panelists. So we hope you all have a great day and wonderful weekend. Thank you. I really look forward to the next opportunity to communicate with all of you, and yeah, further cooperation is possible. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Awesome.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I feel smarter.
Everyone.
I feel smarter before I go to bed tonight listening to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, guys. Really appreciate it.